Hey folks, and welcome to the Pipnotic Symposium for the 8th of April 2014. I was going to do a short video today. I'm going to show you the upcoming functionality that I'm currently writing for the Pipnotic currency strength histogram. So we have the histogram that we all use and love, and we have an additional 3 dots. We have 1, 2, 3 dots. Okay, and this dot in the middle here is a very elegant way to calculate an average for the information that the histogram is calculating. Okay, so all the data that you can see here is input into the algorithm that I'm using to draw these dots here. Okay, and so essentially the takeaway is that if the orange line is below the 0 line, we want to be selling, and if it's above, then we want to be buying. Let me see if we can find another time frame. This one is also negative. If we zoom in a little bit, we'll probably get the same reading. See if we can find a different one. No, looking still pretty bearish. Here we are. So you can see here that on the 15-minute chart, based on the information that we can see on the chart, we have a bias to move higher for this price. So the price of this symbol to move higher. Okay, and you can see that because we have the dots above the 0 line. If you go to the weekly chart, well, then we're looking at very significant information. Okay, so we're looking at information that's very profound considering what we can see now. Okay, and this is beautiful because it completely takes away the subjectivity from ourselves trying to identify the trend. So you can look at this and you can see we're above, so there's a higher likelihood that this is going to continue moving higher than it will move lower. Okay, and this is significant in relation to the probability of this happening. Okay, if we have a look at another one, we also have these here. We have the red dot here and we have the green dot here. And this is telling us that once the histogram moves up close to the red dot, that means it's a very attractive area to sell, and once it moves to the green dot here, this is a very attractive price to buy. Okay, and right now we're not really seeing anything here, but the main thing that you want to consider here is that this is below the 0 line, and so we want to be selling at supply or buying at demand. Okay, if we have a look at another one, in here we have the same thing happening, where we have the dot that's below the 0 line, so you want to be selling at supply. We have quite a collection of nice areas of supply, which is shown to us by the software, and the one price went to was the first one here, the one closest to price. The price came up to it, we went to pretty close to the beginning of the sell zone, and then we decided to leave. If we have a look at that on a smaller time frame, we can probably see a bit of clarity. Oof, look at that, and you can see that it poked into this lovely area of hourly supply in line with the currency strength bias, so a nice short at that entry would have been quite handsome. Okay, if we have a look at another couple of examples, we'll do this one here. Note that we are negative on this one, so we have the orange dot that's below the 0 line, so we're expecting this to continue moving lower. If we have a look on the hourly chart, let's see if this changes. No, still looking pretty negative, as you can see here. And we had a couple of setups here that lined up nicely with this hourly area of supply. So we had a poke into this area, rejection. We had another one, and a very strong rejection. So this is just a beautiful way to identify the directional bias. And here we have another example. Make sure we get some of those lines removed. Okay, and so here we had an area of supply that was tested. Price went a little bit deeper, so deeper into the sell zone. We reacted to this area of supply just up here. The dot is below the 0 line, which means that we want to be selling, and this is precisely what happened now. Okay, let's do another one on the euro yen, just to find another example. And here you can see the same thing happening, where you have the dot that's below the line, so we have a negative bias, and so now you just want to find an area of supply that would be interesting to sell at. And you can see that when price reacted at, we had something in here. It was tested once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, and then we had this area here that went through it. The slingshot was pulled back to the supply, and then it left. So you'd move this one to here. The software didn't find it, but We can do it by doing our little supply and demand analysis, and this is where price came to, then left. It came right, it came to the edge of the sell zone, went a little bit deeper to find some fresh pancakes, and then we left. Again, in line with this. So it's a super powerful tool. When it's available in 2 to 4 weeks, depending on how things go here. We're currently still under lockdown and homeschooling, and so there's not a lot of time, but I'm trying to get this done as quick as I can so that you guys can get your hands on it as soon as possible. It's a pretty phenomenal tool, and I encourage you to use it once it's available. So let's look at one more example. Let's look at the Kiwi Swiss franc. You can see, notice that it's a little bit slow, and the reason it's slow is because it's doing a monster amount of calculating behind the scenes, and I've limited it to do these calculations once per minute. Okay, so it's not constantly running through this algorithm. It's doing it once every minute, and this is just to reduce the amount of time and the CPU overhead required to generate these values here. So here you can see that we were below this. Okay, so we had the dot below the zero line. Notice here that we had this area of supply, beautiful fresh supply, price poked into it, then we came down. Okay, so this is just a very nice example here as well. And the beautiful thing is when you combine currency strength with supply and demand, I mean, you're waiting for currency strength to reach historical areas of exhaustion at supply and demand, and then you're trading at these levels. And this is even more powerful than just trading pure supply and demand, because if you look at a supply and demand chart, I mean, sometimes you have beautiful areas of supply and demand, but price just tears through them, so you're wondering, well, why on earth did that happen? But if you would look at currency strength, then you realize that, well, actually we had actually reached an area of extreme exhaustion to the negative side, and so we could expect price to continue moving higher. And while I've been running the algo trader, which is essentially using this information for trading signals, I'm finding that the trades that it enters that I would maybe be a little bit apprehensive about entering using discretionary supply and demand trading, normally, and I'm talking 80% of the time, work out very well because of this theory that's being employed. And if I show you the results from the algo trader to date, let me grab those quick. Okay, so we have them here. So we have, I mean, almost 90% accuracy on the wins for the long positions, so short positions, and about 80% on the long positions. Okay, so it's a very high degree of accuracy, and I'm using stop losses. So if I take a loss, I don't really care. We're not running this without stops because that's just never a good idea, because you don't know what your risk potential is. And so here we know what our risk is before we get into any of the trades. The robot calculates this. We have a constant focus on exposure to currencies and currency pairs. We have our risk parameters set, and it's trading 100% automated based on this information, and it's doing very, very well, as you can see. Okay, and so I mean, if the robot's doing this completely objectively, well, then I think that we'll be able to do very well as well based on the information that we're seeing here. And so does my ambition to take this information here, the scanner, and convert it so that it uses this information now instead of the histogram alone, and use this to alert us as to when we're having pairs that are setting up for buys and sells. So it's a pretty exciting project. Cool, well, I'm going to leave it at that for the time being. If you have any questions, add them to the video below or type them into the Discord channel. And just to let you know, the algo trader is not something that's going to be available. It'll never be available. It's just something that I'm using to validate the information that I'm seeing here in the histogram. Okay, so it'll always be a discretionary approach, but I'm just using automation to help validate some of the parameters and the tools that we have at our disposal at Pipnotic. Good. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.